Okay, greetings, brethren. Welcome to another edition on Shepherd's Voice magazine on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully, if this is on the premiere date, happy Sabbath to all of you. I want to send a special shout out to Angela Story in Australia, who, if she doesn't mind, I hope she doesn't mind that she wrote, and I woke up this morning to a very pleasant email thanking us for the work that we're doing here on the YouTube channel. She goes back a long time in the Churches of God, as I gather, and she's a subscriber to Shepherd's Voice magazine down there. And so I just want to say thank you very much. It's very encouraging to receive that email. I just wanted to put it out there. I hope you don't mind. So once again, thank you very much for that. We receive other emails from different people that we've never met, and it's appreciative for the work we're doing, and I'm grateful for God to be able to do this. So we just keep moving forward by faith, and I hope everyone else is doing this by faith as well. So I just want to put that out there. So I want to kind of change it up a little bit today. I don't have a very long presentation. I mean, I could drag it out, as some preachers do, because they get on there. There's a tendency for us to kind of just keep talking and bringing different information from different ideas and different experiences, but I don't think this one is going to be particularly long compared to some of the other ones. But recently I was watching a video, and there was this experienced diver. They got the oxygen tank and everything, and they're comfortable in ocean environments. But he became friends with a tiger shark, of all things. I mean, these are the ones, I think, the tiger sharks, these are the ones that are the classic shark that you would see in Jaws or something like that. But he helped this shark. Apparently there was a hook in its mouth, like a fisherman's hook, some kind, that was stuck in there, and he helped it get rid of it for the shark. And then anytime he would dive in that area, the shark would come to him, and then they became, from what I gather, kind of friends, if you can believe it. And that it would come up to him and nuzzle his nose, and he would pet the shark's nose and these kinds of things. There was some sort of affection or appreciation that the shark showed towards this diver. So if you watch various feeds on the internet, you can see how, in many cases, that the animal kingdom, or the animals, not all of them, of course, but which show some appreciation for humans that have stepped in to help them, and they wouldn't forget. So I'm talking about something a little different today, just kind of deviating from the usual kind of teachings, and because I just want to look at the animal kingdom and God's relationship to them and our relationship to them as well, and how our relationship to animals reflects our relationship with God, our own character, for crying out loud, if you can believe it. So, I like animals. I mean, for the most part, I haven't really had any terrible run-ins. I mean, I grew up in Canada, and we were kind of aware of bears. You don't want to get between the mother bear and its young, or otherwise you're going to get into some kind of trouble. So I've been spared that kind of thing. But in this area here, out and back, I'm just looking out there right now, and some of you may have visited here, but we have wildlife in this area. There's enough trees and enough residential areas here where we have deer. There's deer here that come in the backyard, and we have coyotes, and we have opossums. Not this year because I think they trapped a bunch of them. I don't know. They weren't after them, but but we've seen these opossums come around, and raccoons. And then, of course, you have your squirrels and chipmunks and all these other things and birds and whatever else is going on out there. And we have a couple of pet cats that I've alluded to on a number of occasions here. One is Missy, and one is named Missy, and the other one is Leroy. And they are siblings, and they come from the same litter. And we got them roughly 9 years ago. All right, and they like to participate in going outside. Leroy in particular, and his name is Leroy after Leroy Brown of Jim Croce fame, who talked about bad Leroy Brown of baddest man in the whole downtown. I think he's referring to Chicago. And Leroy has lived up to his name around this neighborhood because a lot of the neighbors know of him. And I've seen his presence because he's got this territory. He's very territorial. The very first thing he wants me to do is let him out in the morning so he can go around sniffing his territory. It's just an instinctive thing, but this is what he does. The other cat, Missy, is not so much the same way. And so, in all honesty, I have prayed several times for God to protect our cats, because there's been a few occasions, and other occasions that have been reported to me where Leroy squares off with coyotes in the neighborhood. And I remember coming out outside one time where I looked to my left with a coffee. I was sitting on my deck, and he squared off with two coyotes. He's ready to go and fight them. And Kim has witnessed, and others in this neighborhood have witnessed, Leroy chasing coyotes out of the yard. I remember Kim yelling at Leroy one time, and I was upstairs up in the loft in the office where I'm normally working, and I hear Kim calling out for Leroy to get back home or get back here, even though I don't know if he's capable of understanding any of that, but he chased the coyote right out of the yard and right into the bushes. So I had to go out there, and his tail's all fluffed up and all this kind of thing. And so I kind of worry, a little bit about him. But I've shared with God, these cats mean a lot to us and mean a lot to Kim, and I want God to, if he doesn't mind, giving them a little extra protection. Because the neighbors know about him too, and they've witnessed, and they kind of wondered, why is this cat chasing coyotes out of here? And I've seen him square up against a fox. That's something else I haven't mentioned here. But we don't see too many foxes around here. But they do come around. So there's that. And our cats are particularly affectionate. Leroy himself, he's actually shown up here on this desk on a couple of occasions, wanting attention. Kim and I went on a trip recently, and we were gone for a week and a half, and then I guess there was some separation anxiety that was going on. We see a lot with dogs. With this Leroy, who's known to have a lot of dog characteristics, suffered a lot from it. So he was very attached to me when I came back, and wouldn't leave me alone for a couple of weeks, or at least a week and a half. So animals they have their sensitivities, and they have their affections. Leroy sleeps with me just about every night, and he sleeps with me on my right arm, primarily, because I'm on the left side of the bed, and he just sleeps on the right hand side of my arm. And because there's poison ivy just out in the back here in the woods, he brings that in, and this is where I get it every year on this, over here on this side of the arm. It's clearing up now, but it's just like, I'm pretty much willing to expect it no matter what I do to try to prevent it. So there's and he brings in he has his catches and he brings them in, and all these kinds of things. So it's just animal behavior, cat behavior, whatever. And there's dogs in the neighborhood too. They don't get along, and I can keep on giving you story after story after story, but that's not the point of where I'm going with here. It's kind of more introductory, and again, sometimes preachers just go on and on. But I love that guy, and I look forward to seeing him all the time and spending time with him. It's just the way it is. Now, what do the scriptures say about the treatment of animals? I think that's what we're going to do today. I don't plan to talk very long, as I said, because I'm not going to go into a deep subject, but maybe this is worthwhile talking about, just kind of an interlude in talking about this. What do the scriptures say about animals? Well, a number of things. Quite a number of things. And few are aware, and I haven't been really that aware until I looked into the subject, that there are more laws in the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, as it's typically called, legislating humane treatment of animals. There's more laws on that than there are about Sabbath observance, if you can believe that. The Torah forbids overworking animals and requires that people help stray and lost creatures. Many injunctions are clearly written for the sake of the creatures and not the owners. God's laws that was written to people of Israel were for the sake of protecting animals, domesticated or otherwise, primarily those who were under their control, the domesticated animals. In fact, the Torah is preoccupied with demanding humane treatment of animals. It's preoccupied with it. It keeps coming up, of all things. What do you think about it? Let's go to Exodus 23 and verses 4 and 5. Let's just look at this. If you meet your enemy's ox or his donkey going astray, you shall surely bring it back to him again. Now, when we talk about enemy, we're not talking about those who we're at war with. We're talking about adversarial relationships that people have had with others. I mean, it's easy to say, "Oh, there's my buddy's donkey over there. He's going astray. He's kind of lost his way. Oh, he's in a place over there. I got to get back to my buddy, and then we can talk later and have drinks and all this kind of thing." But if you see, this is the principle of the matter. If you see somebody's animal gone astray, even though you have a contentious relationship with somebody, but he says, you will surely bring it back to him again. If you see the donkey of one who hates you lying under its burden, whatever it's carrying at the time, and you would refrain from helping it, you shall surely help him with it. You shall help, as I read it here, the donkey. You shall help this animal, regardless, I guess, of the animal. All right, let's keep going. Some references we're going to go through. Even the Ten Commandments tells us not to overwork animals. We can go to Exodus 23 and verse 12. 6 days you shall do your work, and on the 7th day you shall rest, that your ox and your donkey may rest, and the son of your female servant and the stranger may be refreshed. So even the Sabbath is there to protect and give an animal rest. Even so, Leviticus 25 and verse 4 to 7. And the Sabbath produce of the land shall be food to you, for your male and female servants and hired man and stranger who dwells with you, for your livestock and beasts are in your land. All its produce shall be for food. This is talking about every 7 years, as I recall. So even every 7 years, the livestock gets some time off. They're included in this. But here is a very important one here. Proverbs 12 and verse 10. A righteous man regards the life of his animal, but the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. Now, this first part here, the righteous man regards the life of the animals, seems to be very fair, but the righteous tender mercies of the wicked, but the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. Let's talk about this a little bit. The compassion of a righteous person extends even to how he treats his animals. Even so, because that would be consistent with his character. How you treat animals is a reflection of your character. But even the goodness or the best side or the compassion of a wicked person is flawed by cruelty. This means a person's character is reflected on how he or she treats animals. Like, say, Balaam, for example. Remember the prophet Balaam? His wicked character is reflected on how he dealt with his donkey. He abused this donkey who spoke to him somehow, by some miraculous way. So the abuse of animals is a reflection on somebody's character, as it is with someone who is righteous. How they treat an animal, a righteous person, is how to make sure we capture this properly. But a person's character is reflected in how they treat animals across the board. And we should reflect on that on multiple levels. The classic one here is Deuteronomy chapter 25 and verse 4. You shall not muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain. You shall not restrict an ox who needs to be fed. You shall not muzzle them, keep them from giving them the ability to feed themselves, because they know when to feed themselves and they eat their food. And so you shall not muzzle. That was there for the protection of the animal. You may need to say that I'd rather have the animal doing something else, working instead of eating, but you shall not muzzle the ox. Let's go to another story here. And we're just talking stories. Genesis chapter 24. Let's pick it up here in verse 19. So Abraham wanted a spouse or wife for his son, Isaac. So Abraham sent his most senior servant to find a wife for his son Isaac, verse 19. Let's pick it up here further. This is here in just chapter 24. I'm just picking it up here randomly. And so we'll pick it up here in verse 10, for example. Then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, for all his master's goods were in his hand. And he rose and went to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor. And he made his camels kneel down outside the city by a well of water at evening time, the time when women go to draw water. Then he said, O Lord, my master Abraham, please give me success this day, and show kindness to my master Abraham. Behold, here I stand by the well of the water, and the daughters of men of the city are coming out to draw water. Now let it be that the young woman to whom I say, please, let down your pitcher that I may drink. And she says, drink, and I will also give your camels a drink. Let her be the one you have appointed for your servant Isaac, and by this I will know that you have shown kindness to my master. It's rather interesting that this servant would actually say, God, this is how you can show me the answer to my master's calling, or Abraham. It's kind of interesting that he would do this. Maybe things were different back then, how it would work, but it's just rather interesting. But let's see how the story plays out. So Rebecca shows up here. Let's go to verse 17. And the servant ran to meet her and said, please let me drink a little water from your pitcher. And this is how this played out. And she said, drink, my lord. And she quickly gave her pitcher down to her hand and gave him a drink. And when she had finished giving him a drink, she said, I will draw water for your camels also. And they were finished drinking. Then she quickly emptied her pitcher into the trough and ran back to the well to draw water and drew for all his camels. So the servant used the kindness test to find a suitable wife for Isaac. So included in this test was how a woman would respond to the needs of animals. And that was part of the test that this servant went through. And God honored it. We can even go to 2 Samuel chapter 12. We won't read through it all. But God uses the sad story of an inexcusable killing of a family's beloved pet lamb to show King David the error of his ways. You can go there in 2 Samuel 12 to read that story. Let's go to Psalm 36, verse 6 to 7. So Psalm 36, verses 6 to 7. Your mercy, O Lord, is in the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches the clouds. Your righteousness is like the great mountains. Your judgments are a great deep. O Lord, you preserve man and beast. He preserves us along with them. So the tension is there, of course, for us, but also to the beasts. Those who plow the field and others along with us. And we can always think of Jonah chapter 4 and Nineveh. Do you really think that I would like to destroy all these people and much cattle? So God recognizes the beasts of the field there. So God cares for animals as well. I think that's quite evident. There's the question that always comes up is, what about sacrifices, killing animals, all these things, and eating their meat, which God has allowed? That we would kill a cow, kill a lamb, etc., for food and for sacrifices it was. But the fact of the matter is, say for example in the kashrut, which is basically the dietary laws mandated, basically a Jewish document or teaching about regarding dietary laws, mandated immediate demise of an animal. And was very specific about it, so that the animal would not suffer in sacrifice or for food. The animal is not to sacrifice, essentially have it done very quickly so that the animal would not suffer unduly. It's what the point is of this kashrut. And I'm not too familiar with it, but this is what was essentially mandated. And God doesn't want an animal to suffer. Even for example, today we can think about how animals are treated in mass chickens and other things, we can always talk about that. I don't really want to delve into that. But say, for example, I don't eat veal because I know how it comes about, because the treatment of the calves is atrocious, and we should be cognizant of that. This is not really a big moral discussion I want to get into. Some maybe have a lot of strong opinions about this, but I'm just trying to find a way to find God's view on all this, so we can adopt it as close as possible. So what is God's view here a little bit? Let's talk about that just for a little bit, for a brief while. In Matthew 10, chapter 29, it says here, "Aren't 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them falls to the ground without your Father's consent." This is Matthew 10 and verse 29. So somehow God, has a connection with nature beyond what we may normally understand. And we need to respect that possibility. How is this possible that not one of them falls to the ground without your Father's consent? So there's a connection there that with nature that God has with His creation that is maybe beyond our current understanding or needs to be understood. But it's something to respect, something to consider. And I want us to do that. Because how we treat animals and how we treat nature and see these things, is maybe a bit of a reflection on who we really are. I just want to put it out there. Now, we really do get attached to our pets, don't we? I know this. I know this for a fact. And our pets get attached to us as well. I've talked about Leroy here and Missy and these cats, and then we had Max and Ralph. Kim and I had Max and Ralph before that. I used to come home. Kim and I were initially got married, and I'd come home in this other place where we were living, and Ralph would come down and always greet me. So I always appreciated that. But he was a house cat. He never went outside. These cats here, they disappear for a while and go away and do all kinds of crazy things. I sometimes don't even want to know. But we do get attached to our cats, and I would say Leroy's attached to me from what I can see. He always wants my attention, and it's always funny we call them pets because you're always petting them because they always want that attachment to their owners. We call it owners, but I think they believe that they own us. But that's okay. There is, say, for example, in Psalm 23, your rod and your staff, they comfort me, because when lambs were, the Lord is my shepherd, and the staff of the shepherd, if it would lean it up against one of the sheep that he was attending, would actually comfort the sheep, the actual individual sheep itself. So, and this is what these animals seek. And there's dogs that seek this, and others in the animal kingdom. They just like to be held and touched. I can't deny this from going on. Like we can see this. So we get quite attached, don't we? And you can think of maybe if you've had pets and attached, they don't live as long as you do, and they've come and they've gone, and it's been a difficult thing to go through. And I've known many cases of this. I mean, I've seen grown men weep in my career in engineering in the offices. Just grown men just weep because they have to put down their dog. Because the time has come, and you just talk to them about it. And this is just a very real thing. A very real thing that we that we go through. So it's happened in the past. It's happened in the past. The question invariably comes up within church circles. Is there an afterlife for our beloved lost pets? Is there an afterlife? Can we get them back? Is there a possibility of this? Because these things are very painful. We're human beings, and we're very attached, and we become, they're part of the family. My neighbor 2 doors down texted me that they had to put down their dog Hoover. And they called it Hoover because it's always been eating, but it's just a dog that was just covered in kind of welts and sores. And he would actually find a way to come over to this house and come in the house when he could, when the owner wasn't looking, and eat the cat food because they can smell it. And Kim buys very good quality cat food. And animals around this area seem to be able to smell it. And so he would come over and sneak over and start eating the food, and they were wondering where he is. And they would call me, "Is he in your house?" And oh, there he is. Didn't have him very often because they kept him under a good watch. But he would try to sneak away to come over to our place and eat the food. And he told me that he texted me the other day they had to put him down, as I say, and this was just 2 or 3 days ago, and and he mentioned he was like a family member to them for 15 years, and that's how it goes. It's just the reality of it, and so that's just the basic truth, and I hope I'm relating to some of you who've had to experience this. But again, the question comes up, and this has come up in front of me. Can I again in the resurrection, or again, we think of our own loved ones that we've lost in life, parents, siblings, and spouses, and even children. Can we again be with them? And so I'm going to address this in part. I don't have the full answer to this, but I do want to say a couple of things on this level. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3, I think if we're starting here, verse 20, I believe King Solomon wrote this. All go to one place, all are from the dust, and all return to dust. I'm doing the same thing. We're all doing the same thing. Who knows the spirit of the sons of men which goes upward, and the spirit of the animal which goes down to the earth? I do wonder about this. I don't know what his observation was, and I don't want to read too much into what that scripture says. I do wonder about this. And I do wonder about how, I go back to that tiger shark who seems to have an affection for the diver that helped him. And there are many different cases and videos of animals that come to human beings who helped them in the past and haven't seen them for years, and then come to them. And that person returns and they just recognize them immediately and get very excited, and I guess you can call it emotional. Whether it be gorilla or donkey, fish or swan, I don't know. I mean, I've seen these things. So I have to wonder. About this. And that's really the best I can do. And I would find it, well, let's talk about this in just a second. But I want to read this for us on a positive note. In Isaiah 11, chapter 6, Isaiah chapter 11 and verses, I think, 6 to 9. Let's just read here what the future is going to be like at some point. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb. The leopard shall lie down with the young goat. The calf of the young lion and the fatling together, and a child shall lead them. A very familiar scripture for many of us. The cow and the bear shall graze. Their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. Change in nature. The nursing child shall play by the cobra's hole, and the weaned child shall not put his hand in the viper's den. They shall not hurt nor destroy in my holy mountain. For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. As the waters cover the sea. It's completely homogeneous. Completely. So when I look at a scripture like that, I feel rather comfortable in the fact that the animals here that are depicted. It says the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, and as the waters of the sea. And I suppose they will have some knowledge of the Lord themselves. I just can't help to think that. I can look at my cats now, or I can look at animals now. I can look at the deer out there and raccoons. Everybody's just trying to survive. In many ways, they were doing the same thing. But that all is going to change. Because God decreed it. This is the way it's going to be. And I can say, look at my cats, and look at your animals and say, well, they don't have a knowledge of the Lord. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe that'll change. We'll see. I can't say for certain, one way or the other. So in the resurrection, talk about our resurrection. And, there's those who express to me, and I've heard it and I've thought of it myself, they would like to, in their own resurrection, be reunited with their past pets they grieved about. And of course, this does not take away from anything else in terms of family and what God's purpose is or anything like that. I'm just trying to touch on the question. I'm just touching on the question itself. And there's a couple of ways to look at this. If you feel the same way, that it's really something that is important to you about a pet that was lost over the course of a period of time, an animal or dog, cat or whatever that was very special to you. In the resurrection, I would say in the resurrection, if it meant that much to you, and it's kind of a difficult thing. In the resurrection, your life is going to be different. All their tears will be, God will wipe every tear away from our eyes. Yet, if it's that important to you, still, in the resurrection, what's getting in the way of God granting such a thing? Or you yourself granting it to yourself? Just a thought. It's just a thought. I don't know the full extent of the realities of the animal kingdom, but I have a suspicion, as we talked about, the whole creation mourns for the revealing of the sons of God. So there's more going on than meets the eye, and there's more going on than the Scriptures is willing to tell us completely. But if something like this was still your desire, why would God restrict it? And we don't want to be selfish about these things either. We don't want this either. But I just hope that the words I'm speaking to you today, I mean, it's reflecting on my own experience and hopefully reflecting on your own. You know, our connection with the animal kingdom and our pets and many other things that God does care. God does care about the animal kingdom. And we need to give him credit for that. And we need to put our faith in him in that regard as well. So it's also across the board. So I think I've said enough about this, but I'm going to conclude this way. There's a song by the Carpenters that was done years ago, I guess in the 70s. It was "Bless the beasts and the children." Blessed the beasts and the children. And the lyrics go along like this: "Bless the beasts and the children, for in this world they have no voice. They have no choice." So, brethren, I'll leave you with that. God bless all of you on this long weekend. Once again, thank you for joining us on this channel. Hope this was a little helpful for you. I have some other things I want to get into and in coming messages. So stay tuned. Let's stay connected, right? And connect with us whenever you have an opportunity. It's always good to hear from everyone, one way or the other. Take care. God bless you, and God bless your pets. And we'll see you next time here on Shepherd's Voice magazine. Take care.